now the Euros are in full flow. It's the European Championships. It is for all the powerful nations. And of course, if you live around here, England are a big part of the story. And it's a pleasure now to look at what we've seen so far and to look ahead to the quarterfinals, to welcome Didi Hamann to our podcast. Didi is one of the great players, 59 caps for Germany, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, and a hero in particular with Liverpool fans, because in that memorable Champions League final where it went to a penalty shootout against AC Milan with a broken foot, which he had at the time, Didi stepped up to take the first penalty for Liverpool and scored. It showed a lot of bottle. Didi, you're welcome to the stand, and thank you very much for joining us. Of course, you're working for RT now as an analyst, and we're almost we're at the quarterfinal stage. What have you made of the quality of football, Didi?
Well, I think we've seen some very good games, and we also saw some not so good ones. I think with the expansion to 24 teams, you obviously got a lot of teams who sit back and try not to lose. And also with the format as it's been, we've got 6 groups where 4 third place teams get to the last 16, which means 2 or 3 points potentially could get it to the last 16. And we've seen it with Slovenia; they drew all 3 games, they reached the last 16, and obviously that's all they wanted. So I think we've got to look at the format, because what I don't like about the format is that with the 4 third place teams going through, it's a huge advantage playing last. Because obviously the teams in Group D, E, F, they know what they have to do. And I don't think it's any surprise, or I wasn't too surprised that we saw the 2 third place teams in Group A and B go out of the competition. So I don't think it's a level playing field. That's what I don't like about it. I think we've seen some brilliant performances. I think Austria, Switzerland, and Spain probably the most impressive so far.
Yes.
And obviously the best is yet to come.
Yeah, you mentioned playing fields there. The pitches have been terrible, Didi. I think they've been terrible, and they have actually, players have got injured, lost their footing, and it hasn't been just one stadium, it's been almost everywhere.
Well, I think mostly, or the one that's really been the worst was Frankfurt, where all the teams complained. I think they had to relay the pitch because they had an NFL game there a few weeks or a few months ago.
Right.
Whether that's the reason, I don't know. But I agree with you. Some of the pitches didn't look up to scratch.
Now, England, Didi, obviously they attract a great deal of attention in this part of the world, and they have really been poor, I think. They've got lucky with the draw, and looking at the draw, they have really got lucky. They will avoid Germany, Spain, France, Portugal. It's really hard to see how they don't get to the final. Tell me, first of all, about your assessment of why they don't perform. And this team hasn't performed, and it's gone back through other tournaments when they haven't performed as well. If you look at their players, starting with Bellingham, Foden, Harry Kane, they have a lot of top players playing in top club sides. What's gone wrong under Gareth Southgate?
Well, I think the biggest problem they have that I don't think they really have a hierarchy. I think they've got too many players who want to have this leading position within a team, and if you've got too many players who want to be the top dog within a team, then it can become critical.
Yes.
Because in Foden, they've got a brilliant player who's probably best in that number 10 role. Bellingham is probably the same. Kane's got a lot of goals for Bayern Munich. He's the captain. And as we've seen with Switzerland and Austria, if you haven't got a collective, if you don't play together,
yes,
if you don't play with each other, you need players who sacrifice themselves for the team. And I don't think England have enough of these players. Everybody wants to do something. Even Rice, who should be the one dictating things and giving the ball to the forward players or the offensive players to get on with things. Even he wants to get involved. And I think the balance of the team doesn't look right. It's very hard to see because he's very reluctant to change the manager. Obviously, Bellingham might be banned. He might not. So I think he'll stick with the same team. And Palmer, when he come on, did well. Eze only got a few minutes. I think he's a brilliant player. Anthony Gordon, I don't think we've seen him at all or hardly at all. So I think changes would probably need to happen. But as we know, with the manager, he's very reluctant to do that. And I don't think it's going to happen. This is why I think it's very hard to see improvement. Because if you look at France hasn't been great.
No, they haven't, but they are a team.
Yeah, and I always think, and defensively, they're very solid. They don't give away many chances, which England does. And I still think that it takes a very good team to beat France.
Yes.
I don't think it takes a very good team to beat England. And this is why they are in the easier side of the draw. They can go to the final, but I can't really see them going all the way.
Right. Now, your home country, Germany, I didn't expect them to do well, Didi, because I think, Bayern Munich through this season haven't been great. And they are, of course, 10-time champions in a row until this year in Bayer Leverkusen, with an unbeaten season, with a friend of yours, Xavi Alonso, as coach, were the team and won the Bundesliga. I saw them in a European final, Didi. I was really disappointed with them and it was a game they lost. It was a bit of a miracle to go through a German season unbeaten. Mm. It's not a big club, Bayern Leverkusen, historically either, is it?
No, that's right. But they've done ever so well, and obviously he's what he does. I think they've got a setting there in the hierarchy where Xhaka was brought in.
Yes,
who did okay for Arsenal, but he's took his game to another level. He's got huge respect for the manager, and he's calling the shots there. They've got a very good defense. In Wirtz, they've got an outstanding player, probably the best young player we've got, even though so far he's been very quiet in this tournament. And they had in Boniface a centre forward who scored the goals. And even when he was out injured, they always found a way to win games. And they only lost one game all season. Unfortunately, it was here in Dublin in the Aviva in the Europa League final. But they've done brilliant. And obviously, that's the reason we see some players in the German national team as well.
Yeah, let me just ask you about the coach, Alonso. I mean, he was a really top player, wasn't he? Played for Liverpool, played for Real Madrid. He very wisely, in my view, turned down, we're told, the job at Liverpool. I think he was smart to turn it down because I think Liverpool may have passed their best and Klopp is gone and following Klopp wouldn't be great. Mm. But you know him very well, you're good friends, you played together. I think you told me about 3 or 4 years ago, watch this guy, he's going to be a top manager.
Yeah, and he's proved it. Obviously, it was a bit of a risk for Leverkusen as well because he was managing and Sociedad took the second team up. He got relegated with them. And Leverkusen got a very good squad, but they underperformed for a number of years now. And I think what he has is just he's got common sense, which is not a norm anymore these days. No. And I think he's got a relationship with the players because he's a very humble and likable guy. And he doesn't go in there and says, "Listen, guys, this is how we do it. I've done this, this, and this in the game," because he played for all these big clubs, won the Champions League a few times. He won the European Championship, won the World Cup. He was an integral part of that strong Spain team in the around 2010 and 15. And he's just a likable guy. And I think these days, when it comes to managing, and we've got a lot of managers now who talk us through the tactics and everything. Now, these guys, they can all play football. They all understand and know the game one better than others. But I think what sets him apart from others is a relationship with the players, because I think first and foremost to him, they are brothers, they are fathers,
yes,
they are siblings, and then secondly, they are football players. And I think this is what he does to players. He's got a huge impact on them. When you hear players talking about him, he's almost, even though he's pretty young in age, like a fatherly figure. And I think that's what sets him apart from other managers.
Yeah, and the best example is Xhaka, who's playing superbly for Switzerland in this tournament, and they due to face England in the next game. Xhaka is transformed completely. He was a bit of a headbanger at Arsenal. He was inconsistent anyway, but then he had give away stupid fouls, get cards, get sent off. He's a different player now entirely.
Yeah, and obviously at a stage of his career where he probably he's seen it all, because I think in his late 20s or early 30s now, Now, when a new manager comes in, you think he's played the game for 10 years, he's played for big clubs, and you probably think, yeah, I've seen quite a bit, so I know the game. But then a guy, a bit similar when I was at Liverpool when Benitez came in.
Yes.
Because I think he showed me a different side, and I had some great managers in Trapattoni and Beckenbauer and Reager. But he came in and he showed me something where I thought, I know this before, I've heard this before, but he said things I didn't.
Yes.
And I think it's similar with him. And if you can transform a player, as you said, he's been at times very ill-disciplined. And I was never really a big fan of Xhaka.
No.
But when a manager understands a player and gets him to change his game in the late 20s or early 30s, I think it shows what a great manager he is. And obviously it's a lot easier for a young player because they'll be soaking up everything Alonso says. And I think Xhaka, obviously he's had a great season for Leverkusen. I think he's the reason why Switzerland is doing so well in this tournament, and yes. I think they've got a fair chance to beat England as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Just to go back to the European Championship, Didi, Germany, how good is that team? I watched them on Saturday night, I think it was, and it was hard work, but they got the job done. And there looks to be life about them, but you're the expert. You tell me. You know them better than me.
No, I think you summed it up pretty well, Eamon. They so far they did what they have to do. They had a group that was probably a bit harder than it looked on paper. Scotland froze in the first game. That wasn't a benchmark against Hungary and Switzerland. Very disciplined and organized team. They made it hard for us. The same happened on the other day on Saturday against Denmark. I think we got a bit fortunate. Obviously, the offside decision. If he's offside, he's offside, even though it's only marginal. I think the penalty, the handball, was a hideous decision. I think that's been one of the worst decisions in the tournament so far, maybe the worst.
Right.
I don't think that's ever been a penalty. But then again, they got the decision and they took advantage. And what he said about the team has got life. If you see other teams or the big nations struggle, I think that's really probably the biggest trump card we've got. We are at home. We got home advantage. Everybody's buzzing. Everybody's happy because they didn't really know what to expect before the start of the tournament. Now we're in the last 8. Now we're there. And how good is the team? I still got my doubts about the team, I've got to say. And we've got the ultimate test on Friday. And I think we find out how good they are on Friday. I probably tend towards Spain to go through to the semi-final. But
they're a bit lightweight, Didi, Spain.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Germany will have that's right. Germany will have a go, and as you've seen with the game against Georgia, they go 1-0 up. They had 1 or 2 breaks on the counter where they, with a bit of fortune, maybe they can go 2-0 up, and it might be a different game. So I think we will get chances. But I think going forward they're excellent with Nico Williams and Yamal on the wings.
Yes,
Rodri, obviously the orchestrator, he's the guy who's dictating pace. It's a very good team, good mixture of young and old. It's the ultimate test. And as I said, I tend towards Spain, but I think we've got a good chance.
Right. Now, Switzerland, I think the England situation is intriguing for the reasons that we all and our listeners would know. They do have top players. I mean, Bellingham is a good example. It was a great goal he scored to win that game at the weekend. It really, really was a moment when you had to produce, and he did it. He may be banned for a gesture he made to the crowd. I think he was sending a message to journalists and people who had been critical of England, but England haven't really reflected the strength of the team, or what should be the strength of the team. But it is true, isn't it, Didi? I think I saw you say it on RTE last night, and I've been saying to myself for weeks, you've got to pick a team, and the team isn't always the best 11 players. Yeah. I mean, that just makes sense, doesn't it? But it is at the same time very hard to leave certain players out of a team, and that's the problem Southgate has, isn't it?
Yeah, you're 100% right, Eamon. The best players will never make the best team. You can put the best 11 players together, and they probably don't be the championship side. Because if you don't have people working for each other, and as I said before, sacrificing themselves for the team, it's not going to happen. And but Southgate's been in charge for a long time now, and they had some near misses for whatever reason. He's always been a bit cautious. I think the game against Italy in the final 3 years ago, they should have never lost, but they did. Now he's got all these players now who had very good seasons, but he's there to make decisions. And if you feel that the balance of the team is not right, you've got to make them decisions. And you've got to make them decisions for the right reason. And if it turns out afterwards it was a wrong decision, I think 9 times out of 10, if you follow through with that decision and you stick by it, I think it's always better than making no decision. Because at the moment what they do, they just let things go, and they score these 2 late goals. It was a moment of magic, no doubt about that, from Bellingham.
Yes.
But they've been very fortunate. They shouldn't be in that position now. And we don't want to go back to the added time, 6 minutes, I think was on the high side. So I think they got a bit fortunate with that as well. But they took advantage and they scored the goal. They're still in. But this is the issue I've got with them. Can I see them improving and getting better? I don't, because he's not going to change the team. And he may have to. If Bellingham does get suspended, he probably won't get suspended over here. So he will stick with the same team. And it's clearly not working. The bright spark was Mainu. I think it did make a difference when he came into the team. But I don't really see England to improve. But then again, they're not in a stronger half. But they will come up against a Swiss side that's very disciplined, very organized. And they always favour the collective over individual players. Yes. And I think this is what England is at the moment. A collection of individual players.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So it takes the mystery out of why aren't we doing so well when we've got all these wonderful players. But that's not what you need a team.
Yeah, you can't win it on your own, Eamon.
No, absolutely not. Let me take you to the team you tipped in the Racing Post, Didi, was Portugal, and we saw them last night. It wasn't very glorious. I thought they were actually quite poor. I don't like their coach, Martinez. Saw a lot of him in England. He was manager of Belgium for ages and didn't do anything. He wasn't great at Everton either. But leaving that aside, France and Portugal play on Friday night, and it's a big game for both nations. They are powerful nations, but I'm not sure I was very impressed with Portugal against Slovenia. In fact, Slovenia could have been 1-0 up if that centre forward had stuck the ball home. What do you think?
France.
I'd go France all day, I think.
Yeah, well, I think France go in as favourites. Then again, I think Portugal, when they play against, obviously they play against a team on Friday where they probably don't have to be proactive. They can, sit back and maybe try to play on the counter attack. And they found it very hard, but we've seen it a lot with the bigger teams that they've got problems to break teams down. It'll be a different game, but then again, France is very streetwise. They don't do many mistakes. They don't give much away, and Portugal's been pretty average. And then obviously you've got Ronaldo up top, who's he had no impact at all in yesterday's game. The manager, I think, made a decision. He's going to stick with him. He praised him. It was praise of the highest order after the game. He praised his mentality and everything about it. So Ronaldo will play against France again. He will start, but I don't think it helps the team. And without Ronaldo, I think they stood a better chance on Friday. But the fact that he's playing, or probably he will be playing, I'm pretty sure, I think makes me fancy them pretty strongly.
Right. I mean, interestingly, Didi, and surprisingly, he didn't put Jota on until very late. Jota's a very valuable player, a real good goal scorer, but he put him on too late to have much of an effect last night. But we'll see how we go. England have been absolutely blessed with the draw. They're on the same side now as Romania, the Netherlands, Austria and Turkey. I'd fancy Austria and Turkey possibly to beat England, but this isn't an interview with myself. It's an interview with the most popular analyst in these islands at the moment, and the most respected. So let's go to somebody in the Racing Post yesterday, Didi, a paper we both read, tipped the Netherlands. He said they would win. If the Netherlands win, I promise I'll never utter another word about football. They're brutal.
Yeah. Well, I think.
Well, what do you think?
well. Out of the half, Austria's been very good. But,
yeah, very good.
You know, people in Austria, obviously, they are ecstatic how well they've done. I think Turkey's a tricky game tonight.
Yes.
Because Turkey, they didn't play well against Portugal. They did enough against the Czechs, but I think it'll be a pretty even game. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion Austria's going to go through. I think the Netherlands will beat Romania, but I think England will have probably the hardest game now. I don't think Netherlands. Obviously, it would be a semi-final then. Whether it's Netherlands, Turkey, or Austria.
Yes.
But I think the toughest game in that half might be the one coming up against Switzerland.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think Switzerland is a well-oiled and well-drilled machine. And we've seen it time and time again how hard they find it. And then there's huge question marks how united they are, this England team.
Yes.
And, you saw Bellingham's reaction afterwards. He says, it was a moment of magic, don't get me wrong. But then he stands in front of the fans, he says, who else? Yeah. Now, I'm sure that the teammates heard it and seen it.
Right.
It's not really respectful towards your teammates because he's basically saying, if I don't score, nobody does.
Yes.
And these are all little things
yes.
which put doubts in my mind, about how united they are.
Yes.
Because you only find out when you go behind. And they tried everything against Slovakia, but they rode their luck in that game. And they won't get that lucky again in the latter stages now because I think they used it. And I think they've got the toughest game on Friday or Saturday. Having said that, if they were to beat Switzerland, I would probably say I can't see them not going to the final. I think whatever is in their way in the semis, they probably will do it then.
Yeah, it's remarkable, really. It's a remarkable story. Just a final question, Didi, and it's great to have you on our podcast. Who's going to win it? Obviously, huge support for Germany, but also huge pressure for them, which they seem to be sort of dealing with, certainly compared to England, that they're on a different planet in terms of the performances. Who do you fancy to win it? If not your original choice, Portugal.
Yeah, no. I thought the Ronaldo that Ronaldo situation will be handled beforehand. So he knows his role. He knows that he can't play every game. He even played the third group game where they didn't play for anything. He still played. He was the only player staying in the team.
I think this coach is afraid of him, Didi.
Yeah, no. Well, I'd go a step further. I'd say that Ronaldo is telling him when he plays or if he plays. Yeah. So he's obviously not allowed to take him off because he took him off against Georgia. He went off his head. Next game he plays, didn't have any impact, and he kept him on. He even took Leao off, who was the best player.
Yes.
After 60, 70 minutes, and he showed his displeasure when he came off. So I think they've got cracks in the team as well. They have to. They're bound to. So Portugal, I tipped them. I untipped them now.
Right. Yeah, for us exclusively.
If that's possible.
Yeah.
And the other thing is with England, I wouldn't back him myself, but I wouldn't put anyone off because they're in the easier side of the half.
Yeah.
I wouldn't back anyone off backing them. I wouldn't put anyone off backing them because the thing is, there's already 10, 12, 14 teams at home now putting their feet up, and the English are still there. And you still have to beat them. With all their deficiency, you still have to beat them. Now, coming back to the question, who's going to win it? You know, in a funny way, I think it's harder to predict a winner now than it was before the start of the tournament. And I don't, because there's so many question marks about the team. If you put me down to one team now, I'll probably go down the easy route. I'll probably go with France because I think they're most solid. They haven't fired. I always think they've got 1 or 2 years left. I'm not sure about the other teams, whether they have that. Right now, I probably go with France.
Right. There's one other question, or thought, that's come into my head several times during this tournament, and indeed in many other situations. For big teams, the big England, Germany, France, it's better and easier in some ways to play against stronger teams than it is to play against minnows who put 11 men behind the ball.
100%, because we've seen it, and we've seen who would have thought Slovenia, Slovakia go to the last 16.
Yes.
And they probably should be in the last 8 now.
Yes.
Yeah, Slovenia should have won the game yesterday with a chance. The keeper's been brilliant. Slovakia was very unfortunate with a late goal against England. Because as a big nation, you can only lose. Everybody expects you. And the easiest thing in football is to defend. Now, to organize a team, and you have 11 players behind the ball, 30 yards in front of goal.
Yeah.
We've seen it. It's so hard to get through them because they're physically good. You know, they're up for it because they're in the shop window, play against Portugal, Germany, England. They can make a name for themselves. It's so hard to break teams down. That's why you have to be patient. That's why you have to tire them out. You have to obviously find the right passes. Don't panic too early.
Yeah.
And this is what makes it so hard for the bigger nations. So yes, for Spain and Germany, it's probably an easier game than if they were to play Slovakia or Slovenia because they could only lose.
Right.
And if any of these nations win now, people probably make them favorites, and rightly so. So yeah, you're 100% right. It's easier sometimes to play against the bigger nations. We haven't got too many minnows left, so all to play for.
Okay, Didi, as always, it's a joy to talk to you, and I'm sure our listeners will be thrilled that we managed to secure you for a large transfer fee. Good luck with the rest of your work in RTE and indeed in Germany for Sky. We're really grateful to you for joining